Welcome back to the Ripewave audio community, where we explore together all types of home audio systems from hi-fi to home theater. My name is John, and for this video we continue our top AV processor separates under $5,000 series, which support immersive audio formats for at least 12 channels. For part 4, we are focusing on the physical characteristics of these processors and ask the question, can you buy AV immersive processors by the pound or kilo? If you missed part 1, where we outlined the main criteria for channels, format support, or room calibration, or part 2, where we examined the DACS these processors utilize, or part 3, where we describe the connectivity from Ethernet to Internet streaming features, I have provided the links for your convenience in the description. For those that viewed the other parts, you are aware that we are researching AV processors so Ripewave Audio can make a more educated decision when we replace our 5.1 Sony TA-E9000ES processor with a new immersive processor. As before, keep in mind that your criteria may be different, but use this content to help you make your own choices. The list of processors we are examining is a filtered down set from 144 models, 26 brands within the Ripewave Audio database. By selecting criteria for models under $5,000, immersive, separate non-receivers, non-discontinued units, the pool of candidates dropped to 13 models from 9 brands: Anthem, Arcam, Emotiva, Lexicon, Marantz, McIntosh, Monoprice, Rotel, and Yamaha. While we made some initial picks based on channel count, format support, and aesthetics in part 1, and in part 2 we concluded that Emotiva had an edge with the differential design, which not only aids with noise reduction, also makes the most of the 16 AKM 4490 EQ DACS. In part 3 we separated must-haves with nice-to-have connectivity options and determined that the most important connection type is Ethernet, which they all support. If you are looking for all-in-one streaming, then the Marantz AV7706 is the best bet, which also supports 8K video right out of the box today. The Anthem AVM17 was the choice for custom integration support and is not far behind Marantz with streaming, and 8K support is promised with an upgrade. As mentioned before, those videos are available in case you want to examine any points in detail. Now on to part 4 and the physical characteristics. Should you buy an immersive AV processor by the pound or kilo? Maybe not, but the unit's mass does speak to its build quality. There are many parts a brand can make compromises on to reduce build and shipping costs. This, in turn, often lowers the weight, the chassis strength, the power supply, the materials, plastic versus metal and glass. Keeping the quality high on those design elements may not always improve sound characteristics, albeit they can impact user experience and pride of ownership. Take Ripewave's own Sony TA-E9000ES processor as an example of solid build quality. This 1998 model, which originally listed for $1,850, was considered a good value at the time. Now, we purchased new in 2000 for $980, which was an even better deal. The chassis is rigid with bracing that is hefty, weighing 28.2 pounds and 12.8 kilograms, and it's largely due to its power supply, which Sony highlighted it in brochures as their stress-free, linear, wrap core power transformer, and contributes to this processor's very low noise output. As a processor separate, the 9000ES outweighs receivers even today. For example, the Marantz SR6015 has 9 power amps, rated at 110 watts or 77 watts with all the channels driven, and it comes with a weight that comes to 28.2 pounds, exactly the same. Despite not having built-in amplifiers, Sony put a heavy power supply in for a reason. They felt this power supply would improve the output and make this model a top-of-class contender, and they were right. It is a model that is still referenced today in reviews. While modern for its time, its circuitry design is now looking dated, and it's time to move on. However, we want to ensure that its replacement can better this legendary 1990s designed product. Let's now start our physical comparison. We will start with the heaviest model and work our way down to the lightest. At the same time, we will take note of other physical elements, from aesthetics to the usability of its included remote. For our initial presentation, we will cover each model separately so you can inspect very large photos and hold our normal comparison slides till the very end. Despite being on the lower end of the price scale at $2,700, the Yamaha CX-A5200 is the heaviest model of this group, weighing 33.5 pounds, 15.2 kilograms. Note, Ripewave Audio tries to include metric values given the large international audience this channel has, but for simplicity all prices are in US dollars. The styling of the Yamaha entry is smart and clean, but it's starting to appear a bit dated with its dot matrix display that is not too different from the decades-old Sony we have. We like the large input and volume knobs. They hide additional buttons and the front accessible inputs and headphone jack behind a door, which adds to the clean design. However, Ripewave Audio prefers units without a door. Items not worthy of front panel inclusion can go on the remote, and the headphone jack should be always available. The remote has a clean layout as well, but lacks direct access to inputs. Instead, you must cycle through each until you land on the right one, and it's not backlit. Looking into the CX-A5200, we see a toroidal power supply, which adorns most models covered in this series, and is one that has a nicely branded cover. The circuitry is as clean and uncluttered as its front panel, with room to spare. We like the center bracing for the chassis, and it provides additional rigidity. The Marantz AV8805 has the same front panel layout as the Yamaha, with large knobs for volume and input selection. Marantz is the only other brand we cover in this series with a front panel door to hide additional controls and I/O. Marantz takes this concept a step further, with their porthole providing very limited information to the user. The detailed display is not visible unless the door is open. Again, the display is a dot metric style like our 1998 processor, and again the headphone jack is not accessible unless the door is open, albeit it is a full 1/4-inch jack. Marantz has a remote that's unique with its one-line LCD display. It is backlit, and Marantz has provided individual buttons for direct input navigations. Inside, the AV8805 shows its 30.2 pounds, 13.8 kilograms. The exploding photo Marantz uses in their promotion draws attention to the quality and added bracing and ease of access to components with removable sidewalls. The power section is impressive. We can see individual circuitry for each of the 15 channels. Its full use of the space is reminiscent of our Sony. However, this model uses more modern chips that compact a lot more into a small space, so it is clear this unit has a lot going on via hardware. The Emotiva RMC1 uses a different approach to the design. Gone is the hidden door, but yet we have Emotiva with a full 1/4-inch phono jack for the headphone output on the front panel. volume and navigation are handled by a joystick-like knob, similar to the ones we find in cars today. First-hand use will be needed to determine if this implementation is desirable. The display is still dot matrix, but this one has a finer resolution than the Yamaha or Marantz models. While a bit more modern, it is not as good as others, with the font being a little chunky, but that seems to emulate Emotiva's design language, as the angled corners are seen on the sides, the remote, and certainly their speakers. The Emotiva remote is our least favorite. The buttons make a clicking sound. They are not backlit. Now, albeit you don't have to cycle through the inputs. The weight dropped the most between the AV8805 and the RMC1. Over 6 pounds, 2.8 kilograms separate these models. The RMC1 weighs 24 pounds, 10.9 kilograms. However, the power supply technology is different. The Emotiva models use a switched mode power supply, often written as SMPS for short. Generally speaking, an SMPS supply is lighter, more efficient than a linear power supply, such as a toroid. Switched mode power supplies are more complex and tend to be noisier than linear power supplies, but if designed well, it can be as clean, if not cleaner, than a toroid-based linear supply. Now, there has been a lot of debate over the quality of Emotiva's power supply used in these models. However, it comes down to how it sounds. Accounts by actual owners of the RMC1 say the sound quality is one area Emotiva has succeeded in. Overall, the chassis of the RMC1 is respectable, but perhaps not as rigid as the two previous models discussed here. The Lexicon styling invokes their heritage in theater processing and looks like a component designed for commercial use. As such, the dot matrix display is perhaps fitting. The MC10 has a single multi-function knob and buttons to cycle the inputs and other buttons for commonly used functions. Again, the use of an 1/8 inch phono jack appears to be made to balance the aesthetic versus functionality. The remote has a logical layout, not cluttered, and still provides direct access to input selections. Inside, the toroidal power supply helps to bring this unit to 24 pounds, 10.9 kilograms, but it is bolted on. Uncovered presentation is clearly not intended to be seen. Lots of extra room here. It appears the chassis size is dictated more by the I/O on the backplane than the circuitry. A trend we will see on other models. We have inside photos here on Ford. Like Lexicon, Arcam is also Harman brand. Well, we see similar elements in the Arcam AV40. The AV40 has a design language that is more aligned with the modern home theater than commercial. The available single multi-function knob and buttons echo that of the MC10, however they are presented differently. The front panel display is the first we are seeing that is of a modern design with multiple lines, smooth fonts, and potential for graphics such as album art to be displayed. The remote is the same as Lexicon remote, with only the silkscreen logo changed and a BT for Bluetooth button labeled replacing the USB button found on the MC10 remote. The picture we have for the inside of the AV40 is much better than that of the MC10, but we suspect they may be identical or close to it. This one better shows how open it is inside, and the 3/4 view on the bottom left shows the backplane boards. The AV7706 is the latest Marantz model, but still carries the same porthole design Marantz has used since the AV7005 model introduced in 2010. Now, after 10 years, even the remote is based on the same design. it may be time for a refresh. We will point out that the AV7706 remote lacks the LCD display, but is otherwise identical to that of the AV8805. Now inside the AV7706 we do see considerable differences between this model and the flagship, and significantly more expensive AV8805. The power supply is not as robust, and the circuitry appears to be simplified. As such, this model, while similar in looks to a long line of Marantz products, weighs much less than the AV8805. The AV7706 weighs in at 22.9 pounds, 10.4 kilograms. The Emotiva RMC-1L does not have the expansion capabilities of the RMC-1 and is therefore not as tall. Otherwise, it shares the same design with multifunction joystick knob, cross-panel display, and remote. Inside, it is the same story for the RMC-1. The top view looks exactly the same. The loss of 2 pounds, or 0.9 kilograms, is likely from the use of a smaller chassis, which has a total weight of 22 pounds, 10 kilograms. The Emotiva XMC2 is slightly different, with a standard knob positioned on the right-hand side and navigation managed through 4 cardinal buttons. The remote, however, is shared with the RMC-1 and RMC-1L. We could not find a good picture of the inside of the XMC2. However, Emotiva does supply photos for some of the boards, and they are the same as the other models. We suspect the XMC2 is like the RMC-1L, with some depopulation for the differential circuits on the surround channels, which are not present on the XMC2. The XMC2 has a reported weight which is the same as the RMC-1L, 22 pounds, 10 kilograms, which further suggests the similarities in design. In our opinion, the Anthem AVM70 is the most modern and attractive design of the group. Anthem totally refreshed the design of the previous model, the AVM60. The display is now of the highest resolution, with cleaner fonts than that of the Arcam, albeit it may not display album art as the AV40 does. The whole design works aesthetically. It's clean, easy to use, and has a full 1/4-inch headphone jack available without distracting from the design. The remote is a carryover from the previous model and does not provide direct input navigation. As a new model, some details are still coming in, and the recently released manual is a little thin on details as well. We still don't have full specifications, including the weight. One of the earliest unboxing reports by Barrett of Spec-of-Tech indicated the same, but suggested it could weigh as little more than the Marantz AV7706, which is 22.9 pounds, 10.4 kilograms, and will confirm at a later date. Be sure to check out his video on the AVM70 from Anthem. He did a great job, and I'll put the link in the description. We do know that the AVM60, which the AVM70 replaces, is 20 pounds, 9.1 kilograms. So we can assume it is somewhere around those values. We are showing the inside of the AVM60 as there isn't any release photos of the view of the AVM70 yet. We do know that the AVM70 uses a toroidal power supply as before and likely won't be smaller. We will have to wait for full details. The Rotel RSP-1576 and the RSP-1576 Mark II have a classic look, particularly in the silver finish. Its dot matrix display uses larger fonts than the others. While not the most modern approach, the design seems to work well. We won't cover I/O until the next video, but we will point out that these Rotel models are the only ones without XLR outputs. The remote is backlit with direct input access buttons, albeit the design of the remote could use a uplift a bit in its styling. Inside these models we see a toroidal power supply, but it is perhaps smaller, or the chassis is not as robust, as this model is 19.4 pounds, 8.8 kilograms. The McIntosh design is timeless. They use quality materials to make an older design appear fresh. We don't see McIntosh adopting the high-res displays anytime soon, so you are presented with a traditional two-line dot matrix display with their latest entry from 2020, the MX100. This is the slimmest of the bunch and respectively weighs 10 pounds, 7.7 kilograms. For those looking to minimize space in their electronics, this could be the answer. We have not heard if this model is based on Lyngdorf or Marantz, as their other processors are. If it is, we will have a better clue to what is inside of the MX100. As of this video, we don't have an interior photo of this unit. The slim remote McIntosh uses for the MX100 has what we feel is to be the most stylish, albeit it may not be as functional as there is no direct input access. The Monoprice Monolith HTP1 holds the distinction of being the lightest model of this group at 16 pounds, 7.3 kilograms. It also supports 16 channels, so we suspect that this low weight is accomplished via using a switched mode power supply like Emotiva has employed, and is not a linear power supply, but we will see. The chassis itself also may be lightened. The style of the HTP1 is a little hard to explain. Now it attempts to be modern, but the execution seems to have missed the mark. Yes, it has a large display, but it is large without being elegant. Without an interior photo or details from Monoprice, we can only guess about the inside. What we do see is the remote that is very clean, but without backlit or direct input selection. Now let's take a look at all the models together, sorted by price. McIntosh tops the list, as expected, given their brand value and build quality. The surprise is the Yamaha CX-A5200, which delivers on build quality for one of the lowest prices, $2,700. With the Arcam model near the top of the price range, $4,500, we would have expected more. This comparison view is also helpful in understanding the price difference between the Marantz AV8805, which is $4,499, and the Marantz AV7706, which is $2,499, beyond the two-channel difference. Certainly, a lot more goes into the AV8805 hardware and helps to justify the $2,000 premium. In the table view, we can easily compare models and see which ones have a weight or power advantage. The Marantz AV8805 and Yamaha CX-A5200s are the heaviest, but the power supply of the AV8805 consumes the most power at 90 watts. The Rotel RSP1576, Monoprice HTP1, and McIntosh MX100 are the lightest. The McIntosh has a particularly low power consumption. Now, while McIntosh is not going to release anything that is underpowered, we wonder about the impact these low values have on the sound quality. McIntosh does have other models, such as the 31-pound, 14.1 kilogram, 75 watt consuming MX123, which likely has improvements on sound over the MX100. Finally, we are showing all the remotes in one table for comparison. Remote preferences can be subjective, so we are assured that each of you have your own criteria for remotes. In fact, you may not use any of these at all if you've moved on to integrated universal solutions. Our guess is the Yamaha, Marantz, and McIntosh remotes are the highest quality. Please note that the Marantz AV7706 drops the LCD display function from the remote. The Emotiva remote is our least favorite, and the others fall somewhere in between. If you want backlit buttons, it appears that only Marantz and Rotel models have that feature. For direct access to inputs, the list is longer. Marantz, Arcam, Lexicon, Emotiva, and Rotel provide that functionality. The physical characteristics do impact Ripewave's choices. We want a processor that has an updated appearance and looks modern, or reinvents a classic theme in a very positive way. On front panel looks alone, we give the prize to Anthem AVM 70 and McIntosh MX100. The Anthem for modern and the MX100 for classic application. The Monoprice monolith HTP1 is the least inspiring design from our perspective. The AVM 70 elegantly applies the large display. The HTP1 does not. It appears to be just incorporated without much thought. Marantz needs to evolve their style, as it has not been possible to discern one model from another over the last decade. Their latest Model 30 series adds refinement to the porthole design. Perhaps we will see elements from the Model 30 series appear in their AV processor receiver ranges sometime this year. We do believe that added weight translates into better sound, but you need to be comparing apples to apples. You should not compare a switch mode power supply's model's weight to that which uses a toroid or other type of linear supply. You can still look at the photos when available of the inside to compare build quality. It is clear the Marantz AV8805 and Yamaha CX-A5200 lead the mass category. However, the Emotiva models are a bit of a wild card due to their switch mode power supply approach, but photos suggest that build quality is not the same level as the Marantz and Yamaha leaders. The big unknown is what the new Anthem model looks like inside. It is possible that they have also done well in this category, but we need them to release more details so we can better assess. We are most concerned about the quality of the monolith HTP1, given that it is the lightest weight and still supports 16 channels. But without a listening test, we can't say our concern is valid. While we have our preference with a remote, it's not a deal breaker, and universal remotes can be used. For this round, we are split between looks and performance. Looks, Anthem and McIntosh. Performance and build quality, Yamaha and Marantz. It is possible Anthem and Emotiva can join the performance leaders as more knowledge comes in. Most models do well with the physical, but Arcam, Lexicon, and Monoprice models fall enough short in this category to perhaps remove them from the overall consideration. If you're in the market for an AV processor, what physical aspects are important to you? Do you judge by the pound or kilo? How do you feel about switch mode power supplies? Do you have an interior photo of these processors you'd like to share? That feedback would be useful to the Ripewave audio community. Furthermore, if you enjoyed this video and are interested in enhancing your audio experience, please like and subscribe to this Ripewave audio community, and be sure to select the bell icon so you'll be notified as soon as the next video is posted. Until then, Keep evolving your audio experience.